Hello, welcome to my sewing room for this edition of Friday Sews, where we talk a little bit about our sewing adventures and accomplishments for the past week, as well as a little bit of life. So grab you a favorite cup of tea like I'm drinking today. Got a little bit of scratchy throat, so I'm drinking this throat cooler. I've never tried it before, but I add a little bit of splash of honey in it and see. Yes, tastes good. So grab you something to drink and join me to find out what I did this week. I was really kind of concerned that I didn't accomplish as much as I had hoped, but as I was reflecting on this video, I realized that I can't accomplish more than what I realized. So the first thing that I did last week, I shared that I was wanting to remake this new look 6529 View C. I had already made that before and fell in love with my supposedly muslin top. And so I went through my stash and actually found some fabric that my mother had in her stash, and I cut out the entire pattern. So it's all cut out. I just need to remove the pattern pieces, but I got it all marked as well. I have chosen this kind of a jersey knit. I'm going to try that to see how it works. Where I live, we don't need anything really heavy, except for this week. It was a little chilly. But for the most part, we need something just very light with long sleeves, and that really satisfies me and helps me keep warm when it does get those few days where it drops down really low. So I've got that all cut out and marked, so it'll be ready to go. I also mentioned that I'm also redoing this church lady's apron, but this time I'm going to do a true reversible print. And I was toying with the idea for the pockets. Normally I had done print on print for the pockets, but I found this like fat quarter in my stash and thought, this might be a nice little pocket. Kind of give it a little dimension, a little contrast. And several of you reached out and encouraged me to do that. So I am going to do that. So thank you so much for your suggestions. And I need to cut this out this week as well. Then I thought, it's been a busy week. I'm really tired. I've been watching the World Series, yes, and my team are now World Series champions for the first time in franchise history. That's probably why I have a little tickle in my throat, because I was cheering on my team. Our house got a little crazy. But I was trying to do an organizational kind of adaptation in my sewing room. So in my sewing room, it's really like a bedroom that I've converted into a sewing room, but there's a closet. And so in my closet, I had, those plastic things you're supposed to put like shoes in. And I had used it for storing my machine embroidery stabilizers in. And I had labeled every pocket. So there's 10 pockets on one side and 10 pockets on the other side for a total of 20 pockets. Well, this thing has really been a point of contention for me because I could never see behind it. I could never see on the floor below it where I had stored some things, and I was constantly having to move it. And every time you move it, stabilizer would fall out. You have to reach back in there. It's just really becoming a very frustrating organizational tool. And, that kind of puts a damper on things. So last week when I couldn't sleep, I thought I had this wonderful idea where I would cut it in half. So total of 10 pockets on the top, 10 pockets on the bottom. And I knew that the plastic would come apart, but I thought if I use that really kind of decorative duct tape, that would hold it together, the top and the bottom. And then I thought the part that I cut off that doesn't have the hanger on it, I would use one of these plastic hangers, and then I would have two shorter pieces in my closet, and it should work much better. So I thought, I was wrong. So in theory, it worked, but what ended up happening is that the weight of this with all the stabilizer was too heavy for this particular hanger, and thus everything fell, and now the floor of my sewing room looks like a major mess. So, I mean, now logically it makes sense, but when you're not sleeping, it did not, I didn't think it all the way through. So now I can't even use the whole hanger anymore. So yeah, that didn't work. So I'm trying to think of a better way to store my stabilizer that it doesn't get in my way, but is easily accessible and it's labeled. So back to the drawing board for that. Then I thought, well, I thought I would add some additional interfacing to my t-shirts to complete my t-shirts that already have kind of the armholes cut out. And so I began pressing all of the interfacing that I had already purchased. It was stored in my garage. Learning tip here, number 2. When it's hot outside, like it was this past summer, do not store your interfacing in the garage, even if it's in totes, because it was still kind of, you could feel the glue on the back of it, but it would not adhere to the back of the t-shirts. So this has not been a problem with me before because I lived in cooler and colder climates than where I am in North Florida right now. So I only lost about a half a yard, maybe a yard of that. So I'm not too terribly upset about it, but it was a little disappointing to say the least. So you live and you learn, I'm just thankful that it wasn't the entire bolt, because I had thought about buying the entire bolt for that. But as I said, this week has been crazy. We not only watched the World Series, but I finished leading our church in our trunk or treat, and we had a huge, huge crowd from our community. They were so appreciative, but I'm tired. And now this week has been moving into what I was doing for my charity. I was making drawstring bags for Operation Christmas Child. And this week was our packing party for our kids ministry. And I am so proud of them. They completed 60 boxes. And so I had my drawstring bags that I had made. And then during Vacation Bible School, they had some canvas drawstring bags that I had already a picture on them, and they used fabric markers on them to color them in. And then I had some store-bought drawstring bags. And so I was just kind of watching to see which ones the kids would pick, and my drawstring bags went first. In fact, a lot of them was like, man, this one is so cool. I wish I had one. So that made me feel really good that they were appreciated. And so if the kids here love them, I'm sure the children on the other side of the world are also going to enjoy those as well. But I have to say, our kids did a phenomenal job in packing their boxes. And I think it went better this year for several different reasons. Number one, I organized it a little differently. Last year I had 2 lines, one for boys and one for girls. Even though I told them it was not a race, visually they kept thinking it was. And so they weren't taking the time to put care into packing their boxes. Number 2, I think it went better this year because I did one line, and they were able to make choices out of each of the bins of what they wanted to put in their boxes. For example, I had a ton of different colors of toothbrushes, and they got to select which one they wanted for their box, and some toys and some flip-flops and socks and other things like that. And so they had more of a choice in making decisions for their box. Whereas last year, I pretty much did them gender specific. And so, they all had the same color of toothbrushes and the same color of socks. So mixing it up a little bit gave them more choices. And I think that another reason why it went well is because for most children, this was their second year of packing the boxes. So they were familiar with it, and I labeled things a little bit differently. So they were self-guiding themselves. I led them through it one time and then allowed them to go back on their own. And they were able to do a self-guiding tour and packing. But I have to say, even the youngest children, like in kindergarten, did a phenomenal job in packing their boxes. And some of them colored and wrote their names on the inside for the child receiving it. They'll be able to have a little splash of happiness inside of their box as well. So really went well, but I am a little tired from all of this in the midst of caring for my mom too. So but thank you so much for spending some time with me and drinking your tea or hot cocoa or even hot coffee with me. I hope that you are doing well. Thank you so much for tuning in, and welcome to all of my new subscribers. I hope that you will take the time to click that notification bell so that you are notified of other videos I upload, as well as subscribing. So thank you so much. I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day, and happy sewing.